Hi, everyone. Today we have with us a designer who is not only talented, but a quick learner, moving fast with designing with AI. He's pushing boundaries and he's been helping his teammates upskill with some incredible workshops. He's someone who's introduced new terms and new products to us. I am currently working with him at Tequity, and I'm excited to learn from him about his design journey and his future goals. Hi, Shamit. How are you doing today?
Hey Ashima, I'm doing well and thanks for having me. I'm like super excited for this conversation. Something more to expand about my journey, right? So I'm a product designer with a little over 3 years of experience working across startups and enterprise platforms. I started out doing more traditional UX and UI work with an agency, which was my first company, where I got the opportunity, to work on a lot of FMCG brands and enterprise tools. Later, I moved into a product-based startup where the focus shifted, just from designing interfaces to solving like real business and operational problems, thinking about the product, and not just thinking, from a like visual and design level. So there, I got the opportunity to, actually track metrics, how the product is doing, work a lot with data and design, which I think really helped me to, train my mind to think from a product point of view more than a design point of view. And working there and then later transitioning to Tequity, like currently, uh, I am trying to upskill myself where my work now focuses more on agentic experiences, which I'll talk more about later, which in short, just it means designing systems where AI actively assist users in completing tasks instead of just presenting interfaces. So the agent and the system go hand in hand and work together. So yeah, I mean that's been my journey so far. But yeah.
That does sound very exciting. I feel like the reason I really wanted you to come on, and thank you so much for coming on, was because around me, I think right now you're the one designer who's gone from like traditional ways of designing to now really adopting a very AI heavy process, or like just exploring and experimenting and actually shipping products, like proper products, or like MVPs. So I feel like that shift is quite exciting. And we're also in a time where everyone's like quite confused about whether or not they should jump, or like like how much to explore, or like whether or not they should explore, will this thing stick around, how to go about it. So I feel like you're doing a really commendable job with that. And my first experience around that was like the AX workshop that you introduced us to. But before that, I feel like you've been in the industry for a few years now. What is like, I want to know from you, what has been your favorite part of the product design process in the traditional sense, or like the old design process? Because you mentioned data, and I've seen that your UI is also like quite good, and I know you experiment with other types of art forms in medias as well. So what is it that draws you to design, or like what is it that you really enjoy about the process of designing a product?
Sure, like that's a great question. So I feel that the number one thing that draws me to design, right? It's the impact. At the end of the day, no matter what kind of product we are designing, whether it's for an enterprise company, an internal tool, or a consumer-facing app, how can you make, lives easier for the people that are going to use it? The users do not actually care about data numbers. That is what our job is, right? Like product designers, PMs. But can they do a task efficiently? Can they move from point A to B? So seeing that and making sure that all the business KPIs are met through design, right? Which is a field I feel which takes a backseat in a lot of departments, and seeing that being, rise and being given the same level of importance as other departments, I think that is a real victory for me. Because yes, other departments are important, but so is design, because it is easy and relatively easier to build products, but it is very hard to differentiate your product from one company to another, right? We can have 10 to 20 different companies using the same tech, using the same go-to market strategy. But what differentiates it is the design. And for me personally, to be able to get that recognition, that uh, is what we brought to the table in front of our internal as well as external stakeholders. I think that's a really rewarding thing for me. So I think, yeah, I think that's what keeps me going. And yeah, that's why I love this process. And another thing is, I feel designing always humbles me. The moment you feel and you think that, okay, now I have worked on enough projects, I have worked on all types of, different kinds of platforms, you feel that you know things, but it's like you need to have a learner's mindset always. Like you need to always be a student for life, because design keeps evolving, it keeps on changing, and you need to keep adapting yourself and always keep learning something new. So I think because you're learning something new, I don't feel that I am in a very monotonous space, or like that task feels very, repetitive in nature. So I always keep getting to learn something new, right? Right now, we are in the era where AI has taken over, and AI is being evolved with design. Uh, and could be the case that 5 to 6 years from now, we would be designing interfaces for augmented reality or virtual reality. So this is what I love about design, right? It's like it's always evolving, it's always fluid and dynamic. So I think that's what keeps me driven. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And I think for me also that's the reason I came into designing. And ideally being a student for life, A, I know where that is from. And B, I feel like in our field it's really important to be to have that learner's mindset, because we really need to keep up with like all of the innovations that are coming in, AI boom that's coming. So I think that's really incredible that you have that mindset and that curiosity and that excitement for design, because that is the one thing that really helps us. And again, like, I agree about the impact thing as well. I think product design is one of the fields wherein you actually have the choice of picking up your products and picking up your solutions, and you get to see like the impact of it, and that's quite fulfilling, right? So yeah, like I completely resonate with that as well. Is there a product or is there a problem that you can talk about wherein you created an impact that was really like fulfilling for you? It could have been for the user, it could have been in terms of like, the solution, like the design solution that you proposed was really impactful for the business, or like maybe both user and business. So is there like an exciting problem that you would like to talk about that you solved?
Sure. So, when back then I was in my product-based company, I used to work for Snabbit. So for their consumer app, right? Basically, I'll just give a big face to this. What Snabbit does is you can basically book a home service in 10 minutes, and house help will come to your house. And within that particular time for which you have booked the service, they'll provide you different household chores, and you can basically get things done. Its primary target audiences are, like bachelors, homemakers, and like people who don't have actually a lot of time and who want to, keep their house clean and get things done. So one of the problem when I was working at Snabbit was retention, right? So customers used to book, we used to get new customers, but after second or third booking, right, we could not retain them. Like they used to stop using the app, or they used to switch to maybe different apps. So retention was a very big problem. And I had this amazing opportunity to work on a feature in this consumer app where it was called as like Snabbit favorites, where basically you can mark the household that is coming to your house as favorite, and the same household will come to your house regularly. Now this actually helped in solving retention a lot, because in terms of Indian context, right, and Indian consumers, whenever a traditional house help comes, right, it's the same house help that is going to come to your house daily. But to match that same level of experience in a very commercialized, a quick commerce app, it's very hard. But giving them that same feeling uh, was, I think, something very exciting. So how the feature worked was like, you have to do minimum of 5 bookings, right? And after 5 bookings, you can set all of these first 5 house helps as your favorite ones. And each time after the fifth booking that you make any booking, out of these five, we will always send you the same house help that had come to your house. Now, this helped in two things. One is the average lifetime frequency of a consumer increase from just dropping off at second or third to at least minimum of 5 bookings per session, like whenever they use the app. And the moment that they realized, okay, the same expert, as we refer to the house helps, kept coming to their house, they also started gaining trust towards the app. And the service was also consistent and standardized, right? Because standardization is the key thing where most product companies fail to keep it uh, consistent, because initially all companies provide great service, but then as the scaling happens, right, it starts to take a hit. But because of this, the same house help coming and the same level of service, the retention rates grew dramatically in a span of few months. And I think that was a very highly rewarding experience for me, because I was the solo designer working at that time. So I think this particular feature project, right, taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of learning as well as unlearning experiences. It taught me patience, to design things with patience, to keep make sure that you're aligning with all other departments. Uh, we designers tend to navigate towards working in a silo kind of a format where we just focus on we have designed and done our job. But I feel it's very important that you keep rotating across departments and you keep be in align with them. So I think, yeah, that was one of the most exciting, I think, opportunities that I got.
Yeah, that sounds quite exciting. And I guess tell me a little bit more about like the feeling you got, because I'm assuming this is like your one of your first projects, and when you actually have a metric that you hit and you get success from it and you actually see results, I know that feeling is like really nice, right? So tell me about that experience when you actually saw a change and you actually saw like the KPIs move and everything. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I feel like the moment I saw that there is growth happening, I felt, first of all, I felt very content with myself and the late night efforts that I had paid off to actually, make that happen. Because when I started design as a journey, right, I always visualized one thing, that I wanted to impact lives of consumers. And seeing, especially, I would say that it is very hard to change minds of Indian consumers, because we have so many options and we are very selective. So uh, this to even shift their behavior, right? Behavioral change is a very uh, big thing. So I think I felt very content. I felt that uh, I learned a lot of new things along the way, and this kind of practice actually helped me to always think in terms of product view and not directly jump towards the solution or start visualizing pixels and how things would look. Because first, as you start in a very early stage company, it's more important that your MVP is actually fitting the product market fit, right? So I think that hitting that nail, um, once I saw the growth, really helped me, and it made me feel more confident as a designer. Because I feel as a designer, we have a lot of imposter syndrome, right? We keep self-doubting ourselves, but it's very important that you just need to be consistent with your work, be truthful to your work, and not rush things, right? Rushing things. I know that even though we work in startups, we have this deadlines, but I feel that this was one of the projects where I took my own time. And I think that really helped me. So I think, uh, yeah, becoming more confident is my takeaway from that.
That sounds quite exciting, and I'm glad you had that experience because I feel like consumer products that way really do challenge you, especially when you're designing for a consumer versus, like, you could also be on the other side. You could be designing the app for the people who actually provide the services, and that user group is very different versus like how consumers react and everything. So yeah, glad you had that experience. And what was your experience with like working with the other teams, like other operations? I'm sure you must have worked with like product managers and engineers, yes, but did you also get a chance to work with the marketing team, the business team, just like, other teams in the company? And what was that experience like? What were the challenges you faced, or like what were the learnings you had from that?
Sure. So I feel, yeah, I did get an opportunity to work with, the finance team, the operations team, marketing, uh, product management, engineering. And what I realized most is, uh, you like collaboration is very important, like cross collaboration and working with cross functional teams. And my biggest learning was communicating your ideas and sometimes tweaking your ideas so that all the departments, right, that you're trying to work along with move with together, because every department has different metrics to track, right? Operations have certain targets, uh, the finance team have revenue targets, the marketing team has growth related targets, and working up with PMs and engineers. So sometimes it's also about, finding the middle ground. So I think finding a middle ground across departments is very important for a designer. You cannot move in a linear manner thinking that, okay, now I have the ideas, I have the features, all I need to do is design. The reality is very different. Another thing that changed for me is, uh, it is not really possible to follow a design process when you are working with different departments. I feel your design process is always going to change and bend in certain ways because uh, you might have a certain vision, but your other internal stakeholders or departments might have a different vision. So it's important that you acknowledge each other's targets, you keep on communicating, and it's very important that you follow a very agile and iterative process. So it's not that you have to, uh, design everything and then you have to show it or present it to your other departments. It's important that each and every stage you are taking feedback from others. And it is not necessary that your feedback should only come from a senior designer or a PM. It's important to respect feedback even from ops teams, engineering team, finance team. So I think taking feedback as a designer is very important. And it's also important that your when you are designing a product or a UI, it is consistent across, right? Your marketing team designs a lot of graphics and visuals. Those same consistency should be living in your UI or your app as well. It should not happen that your UI is going one way and your marketing team is going another, because uh, people, right, even for a brand to get uh, hammered or registered in the mind of a consumer, it could be just them associating a simple color with it or a simple communication copy or a language. So like today, if we think about, red color, or we associate food and red color, we instantly think about Zomato. Like we don't need to think for more than 5 seconds to realize that, red and food, okay, food delivery app Zomato, because they have taken that time of 15 to 20 years to position themselves in our mind as, the ideal place. Similarly for Swiggy or any other industry, right? So branding takes a lot of time, and so does product and other departments do take, and they all need to move together, right? Yeah.
That is actually quite true. And I feel like what you said about like the design process being agile is something, like, that word is something that I think every designer should sort of understand, or at least like for me, that's like my one takeaway. Because for all of us, right, like the first thing we learn is the design process, and then the projects that we make using that design process look very different from when we actually go out in the real world and work on like real world problems. I feel like this is the one thing that everyone's like struggled with, at least in the early days. And while you were talking, what I realized was it's very important to know the design process. It's good to know it through and through, so that when you're actually facing a problem, being able to quickly remember which part of the design process is going to help right now. Like, you could be solving a problem where user testing might not be possible, but you can look at like heat maps from like the previous versions of the product and just things like that. So just knowing exactly what part of the design process, or what I don't know, like what practice works best while you're solving a problem is really important. And I think that comes from knowing the principles through and through, knowing the process through and through, knowing all of the laws through and through. So the literature is just as important for like when it comes to real world problems. So this word agile is like my takeaway. Thank you for that. I feel like this is something I'm going to remember, and something that I need to sort of work on now. Because even I struggle with this. Like a lot of times when your turnaround time is like 2 days, um, for me, I go a little bit blank about like, okay, which part of the process do I follow? And it's really tough in that short amount of time to not jump to the solutions directly and actually sit with the problem and like, try to figure out how to solve this. Um, so tell me something, while you were designing, or while you were like working on this problem statement, and while you were working on this project, was AI in the picture? Like, were you working with like AI at all? Or is it like back in 2023, I guess, when like we were not using AI as much or as proactively?
Yeah, back when I was working on this project, honestly, I did not like involve AI a lot in my workflow. It was mostly used from a POV of, helping with generating some visuals and some assets, right? Visual assets that can help and elevate my UI. But other than that, mostly I was working on like fundamental thinkings or learnings that I had gained over the years, and doing multiple iterations and practice, because I think like uh, when AI came into the picture, right? It had come and it had been over a year when I was working on this project. But like many designers, like I feel my perception towards AI, right? It was both like curious and slightly skeptical. I was not really sure whether how it would help me, so I mostly used it for speeding up small tasks. So yeah, back then I did not use it a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess like that's I feel like that also makes sense, because generative AI was majorly where like people were using AI in their processes, and we did not have agents the way we do now. So yeah, that's completely fair, but how has that process sort of evolved for you? Um like, first of all, like when was this? Are we talking 2023 is when you were working with Snabbit and you were working on this problem?
This was around mid 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, so during that time, from what I also remember, AI was not as much in the picture. And I feel like what's majorly changed now is that everyone can prototype, and shipping and building is fast. So since that project, right, how has the process evolved for you? Because now, like I said, right, you're using AI so much. So what has that journey been like for you?
Sure. So, like over time, I realized the bigger shift is not just limited to these generative tools or these prototyping tools, but about how products behave. And I think that mainly came from since I started learning about, this concept of agentic experiences. So I feel like AI has changed or it's changing the role of how a simple system or a software from something that users merely navigate is now shifting to how something that can actually assist and guide them. So I think that has been the biggest shift I feel in terms of the entire AI experience. And I think that is what most companies right now are optimizing their product for because it's very easy now for any company because everything is right now open source, right? It's very easy for companies to integrate API keys and integrate an LLM. But how are you differentiating yourself if there is a entire, AI inflation right now? It's now mostly about the entire experience that you are providing through AI. Uh, Earlier, AI was just an enabler of technology, but now with AI, you can actually include like human behavior plus your system and make a great product that actually does not feel like you're interacting with just a system. So I think that has been a great shift. How it has impacted my process, right? So I used to just, you generate visuals through it. But right now, I feel in terms of tools, I use a mix of different AI tools. Um, Depending on the stage of the process and how urgent do I need that particular tool, right? Because uh, sometimes I use ChatGPT, which is very helpful for thinking through flows and edge cases. But sometimes if I want to make something fast as an MVP and show it to engineers or my stakeholders, I use Figma Make and Claude Code for instant or rapid prototyping, right? I also experiment with tools for visual concepts like I use Runway AI sometimes to generate visual AI videos. But the real value I feel is using AI as a thinking and brainstorming partner rather than just a generator. And this mindset shift, I think, if you are able to adapt, it's a great win for you as a designer, right? You have to treat um AI as your junior designer, okay, or maybe like your intern, right? Which is helping you speed up things, but you are still the one in control of making the decisions. Uh, and I feel that's where we are at right now. We are in the era where the line is, getting blurred between PMs, designers, and uh, it's very important that you equally invest your mind in thinking about the product as much as a PM. You think about edge cases, you think about what are the constraints that you have, right? Often as designers, we miss to work along with constraints, but it's very important that we keep constraints in mind. We think more in terms of products and how it will impact not just the users, but the business as well, right? Sometimes the users don't know what they want. So it's important that you keep all assumptions and think about all cases, right? Uh, so yeah, I feel that's how my mindset has shifted. And when I first came across, right, this idea of agentic experience or thinking about how AI products are fundamentally different from traditional software, right? So what realization I came through, and even in the workshops that I, kind of gave about the AX world, is like in traditional UX, the user is doing most of the work, but now we have to shift from navigation screens and filling out like forms. And AX now has flipped the entire narrative about and made the products aware, like the system aware of what the user's intent is, how it can assist the users with decisions, and sometimes takes action on behalf of the user. Okay, this is, I feel, this is where we are headed right now. So while the user is still in control, but it's like the user can now take sort of a backseat and let also the system do most of the tasks, automate it for them. So yeah, I think that's been a huge change.
I feel like it has been a change, and it's quite an exciting change as well. But, and like, this is maybe not even like a question to you. And I remember a project that you did where you changed the experience to bring in an agent which provides you or like helps you sort of go through the process of whatever that product provides. um I think the one thing which I would probably want to know your, like, what's your understanding around the fact that, do you think customers are entirely trusting the agent? Like, where do you think the trust factor lies in? I know that when working with agents, they do provide us feedback and stuff. The one thing that I have noticed personally for me is, even if I'm working with like Chat GPT or Claude or any like agent and I ask it to do research for me on something, I I can trust its research, yes, but I do feel like, what if it left something out? Like, for example, if I'm asking Claude that, I want to buy like a running vest, which is exactly what happened recently. I asked it to show me the best running vests. And for some reason, I felt like maybe, it's not showing me all of the options that I just saw on Amazon, or it's showing me the one vest available on Decathlons, or like, it's not even showing me the other products that are available. And I did prompt it two, three times, but ultimately, I don't feel satisfied with the results until and unless I actually go and do the research. So I feel like the trust factor holistically is not there for me personally. Maybe because it's a new experience and we're not used to it. And with time, like, we'll be able to trust it a lot more, or I'll be able to trust it a lot more. It's been like what, 2, 3 months, maybe 6 months since we've been doing this. So, given that you've been working with these products, you've been researching a lot and everything, where do you think the user trust comes in this scenario of like agents doing most of the work for the users?
I think that's a very great observation and a great point, right? Because we are rapidly seeing these technologies and AI evolving, but at the same time, like, we need to also, as designers, observe and read between the lines, like from a lens of a user, right? How their experience is being in terms of adapting to using it, right? I think the uh, entire user experience of users using the agent is still something that is adopting. The technology is for sure adapting, but I think how the users are interacting with it, I think it is still in its very early stages. Now to your question, when it comes to trust, right? I feel it completely depends on your use case, the context, and for what kind of a requirement you're using the agent, right? I'll give you a very simple example for someone who is basically a trader on an or an investor, right? And they're using a stock market trading platform, right? Uh, they cannot solely trust an agent to take investment decisions on their behalf or execute trades on their behalf, because the entire compliance layer of financial rules and all those legal scenarios, right, come into picture. So even though there are right now systems and agents in a lot of fintech apps that suggest you on what you should do, but that is still needs to be taken with a grain of salt when it comes to that layer of security, right? But let's say that you have a very simple task or a use case of just you want to decide, okay, hey, today I want to eat something. Can you recommend me what to eat? So this is a recommendation experience from an agent. This is where your layer of trust would be much higher compared to taking a very massive decision that has a lot of risk, a lot associated with it. So I feel uh, it completely depends on the context and the use case. But since as we speak as of now, right, even tech companies are realizing this, that it is very important that we empathize with the users on how they are adapting with it. I think they are working more and more towards building this trust layer, some ethical guardrails along how these agentic experiences should be, where users, first of all, feel very familiar with using this entire uh, agentic experience. One of the best examples for this, I have used multiple, agents and multiple AI platforms. What I felt best about Claude compared to Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity is it talks in a very human, like conversational tone, right? Now, these are very small nuances that we, like tech companies miss. Like it completely talks and it first makes you feel very safe. Okay. So you don't feel overwhelmed or you don't feel like you are left behind or you're having that FOMO when you're interacting with that technology. So I think empathy with the users is very important. The way AI communicates with you and how it is communicating in a very simple language and not using very jargonish terms when it's throwing back responses to you. I think these things are important. Transparency with the users is very important to gain trust, right? If an agent has executed a certain task, it needs to communicate to me how it did that, why it did that, and how much time it took to did that, what sources did it take, so that you actually, trust the agent that, okay, it has actually gone and, tracked these many links, or it performed and used this tech stack to help me achieve the output that I want. If you leave the user in a black box and you just provide or throw the output in front of the user would keep questioning or feel like it's a guesswork to know how the agent is helping them. So I feel these small steps and nuances are very important when it comes to building trust.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I never honestly bifurcated in terms of the industries where the agent exists. So I feel like that's definitely there. Um, do you think this integration of agents across products is going to increase, and people are going to like trust it more and more? And do you think that'll be quick? Like maybe we see it in like 2027, or do you think it'll take some time? Like what's your um like maybe what's your opinion there, or like how do you see it happening in the future or maybe the near future?
Sure. So I feel with any new technology, right, that comes in the market every once in a while, every few decades, the technology, there is no doubt that the technology is going to take off and just keep upgrading. But user adoption and users actually being familiar with it, I feel takes a lot of time. When, social media as a concept, right, like Facebook, Instagram just came, it took them at least a decade for it being like a familiar thing, right? When Instagram came, when Facebook came. So it is, I feel it's definitely going to take a long time for users to actually feel adapted to using this agentic experiences. So I came across this post on LinkedIn, right? Where right now the only people that even know about AI as a concept, right? Not even agentic experiences is less than like 0.05% in across the world, because it only includes the cohorts that are invested in tech, that are in tech or that are in designing. Other than that, if you observe the average population, they are not even using AI. It is that's the reason you see, right? Google right now has 4.5 to 4.6 billion users, right? uh, how are they able to build that habit of people using AI? So if you do a random search right now on Google, it shows you an AI overview. So it is also slowly and steadily helping users first realize that what is AI about. Okay, so first the average population of the users are realizing, okay, this is certain technology that is consolidating all the information and presenting it to me upfront in terms of all the links that come in your search index. Okay, so this is something cool. This is what my mind will think as a layman, right? That I'll be excited. Okay, wow, I am seeing an AI overview of information. Once you get adapted to that, then you'll start using AI for search, then you'll start using AI for task based options. So the use case is going to take a long time for users to get adapted. I feel it will take at least like 7 to 8 years for it to actually go mainstream. Right now, ChatGPT is the only AI company that is trying to be mainstream or that has gone mainstream. But other AI companies and uh, like core LLM based AI companies, I'm talking about like Gemini, Claude, these are still very niche specific use cases like this tech. And I feel it will take a long time.
That's quite interesting. I guess I understand where you're coming from. Do you think the case would be the same as more and more like voice to text integrations continue to happen, or like more and more voice agents come into the picture? Because I feel like with voice, the learning curve is a lot easier compared to like trusting an agent per se. So, yeah, I feel like, for example, if I look at a household example, right? Teaching smartphones to our parents or our grandparents was such a huge learning curve that it's still happening. But I do see like the whole voice to text experience, how that learning curve has been a lot better and faster. And because it's just easier, like I feel like it reduces the task or like the load at hand for people who are not very tech savvy. And I feel like with voice agents coming in, maybe the use case will be more. And I keep on reading news about like more and more voice agents coming in, more and more companies investing in that and stuff. So I actually feel like the opposite might happen, wherein in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to talk to these agents to complete a lot of our tasks a lot faster. And so will the people who are not very tech savvy. So maybe there could be like a scenario where a lot of people don't know about AI, but they do understand, or like they do understand the fact that it is making your life easier, and it's easier to operate compared to a smartphone and like your traditional apps at this point. But I did not know the number of like the percentage you just said, which is less than 1% of the people know about AI. That's quite shocking, because I guess we're in this industry where AI is like booming and that's the hot topic right now. But yeah, that number is really low compared to like the consumers that exist, and everyone has a smartphone these days. So yeah, like do you think like with voice agents coming in, that can be like that process will like go fast, or like what are your thoughts on voice agents? Have you worked with them so far?
So yeah, I mean, the regarding the 1% number, I could be incorrect, but it is definitely a lot low. Like when it comes to seeing the entire world at a scale. Regarding the voice agent thing, so I feel there are two perspectives to this, in my opinion. One is learning how to use the tech versus knowing what use cases you have with the tech, right? Right now, for non-tech people or non-designers, right? The primary use case is search and quickly getting answers for any queries or any doubts that you have, right? How that agentic experience or that AI or these voice agents are going to transition into their lives completely depends upon how different their jobs are or what kind of use cases that they have. So I think this can only happen the more that they use these voice agents. So I think learning to use it is the first step, but getting aware of use cases, right? Articulating your thoughts and properly putting the prompts, prompt engineering, right? That will take a lot of time, is what I feel. More than so, discovery will happen quick, but I think adaptation and education towards how to use it to your maximum advantage, that is going to take a long time, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair bet as well, because yeah, there could be like friction over there, a lot of people might not want to learn, or like it's I think we understand it a lot better because we also work with it. For a layman, it might be very different. But like, tell me about how your experience has changed now, like going from designing without AI in the traditional sense to now you work with AI and you work with agents and like you're shipping products and stuff. So, how has that process changed for you? Is the change really drastic? Are you like sort of easing into it? What has that journey been like for you? Honestly, why I ask this is because in my head, you're like the AI expert right now, at least like around me. You're the one designer who's like really using it and like you're really experimenting with all the tools, and your knowledge is like you have quite a lot of knowledge around it as well. So, what has that journey been like for you? How did you get here? What was your process?
Yeah, sure. So, before AI became part of everyday, product design, the process for me was very interface focused. We would map out like in my company when it was my first company where I was working, right? We would map out user flows, design screens, and then just prototype those interactions. And my product thinking I felt was very limited, but now, since I started and venturing into this world of agentic experiences, adapting to new processes, which by the way, for me was very intimidating. When I first got to know about it, it was all new. I felt like I was left behind. I had to catch up a lot. But as and when the curiosity and hunger to know more about it drove me, uh, more than catching up, it became very interesting for me to keep on experimenting. So I feel for anyone who is starting with agentic experiences or AI, it's very important that you keep a very open mindset and you keep experimenting a lot. Don't keep yourself restricted to just one tool or one way of working. There are so many tools that are coming as we speak, and I'm yet to experiment a lot. So keep experimenting a lot. And because of venturing into this, now my process includes another layer apart from the traditional layer, right? Which is defining system behavior, right? So as designers, we make a traditional, information architecture, but now we can map out these agentic roles into our traditional information architecture to see where we can automate process, where we can have a quick turnaround time, or where is something where we see leakages in the product where we can fix it. So designers, I feel like me, now think more about what the system observes, what it suggests, and when it asks for confirmation and when it should step back, be it any task or any user flow, right? So I feel it's definitely expanding for me, my overall experience. And now it's more of systems oriented thinking, combined with product thinking, and not just limited to the traditional process that we used to follow. Yeah.
That's quite cool. You also said previously something around like, thinking in the brainstorming process. I totally second you on the whole intimidating bit. It is intimidating because daily so many new products are coming in. Everyone's like trying new stuff. And I feel like, I mean, and I say this in the best possible way, but it has also increased the competition around us because now more and more people can prototype, right? So it really comes down to like your strategy, your ways of problem solving and just things like that. And I feel like with that coming in, the pressure is really on because earlier the expectations were very different. Now the expectations are to like ship fast and to iterate a lot. And that's fair. We do have the tools for it now, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's intimidating, right? It definitely is. And I know when I was also getting started, it took me some time to sort of ease into the process. I do feel like the whole being able to think and brainstorm a lot of ideas quickly without having to, I don't know, spend days just going through the process is something that really works. And I'm glad that you're able to go through that. What's like tell me about like if you have like an experience to share wherein AI or like including AI as a part of your design process really amazed you in the sense that the results were A fast and B they were unexpected. Like it actually gave you something good in like 2 minutes, right? So do you have like an experience like that to share?
Yeah, so this was more like one of the projects that I was working on. It was more of a self project when I was just experimenting and learning these tools, right? So like I was working on platform, right? And I just had this urge to redesign that platform, but completely through the AX process, right? And how AX can speeden up the process as well as have a much more efficient output. So I think that was one of the first realizations that how much the technology has changed and solving the life of designers. So traditionally I used to sit and collect a lot of references, make wireframes, think a lot, do brainstorming exercises, and then design the interface, manually prototype it. And all of this is cool and it is really important, no matter whether you're getting started right now as a designer or 4 years ago. You always need to have your fundamental thinking. But when it came to redesigning this product, I felt like my research phase, right, uh, was like the time that it used to take me to research or collect references, do indirect direct competitor research dramatically reduced. Like I used a lot of GPT and Perplexity to gather several references, articles, sources about research, and it happened in a moment of few minutes, right? Earlier it used to take me a lot of time, and even with GPT, right? Before Perplexity existed, GPT used to give me a consolidated answer. But what I really liked about when I was using Perplexity, right? It provides me citations of different sources and links from where I'm actually fetching that information. So it's completely up to me whether I want to open a single article or see the consolidated answer, right? Um, then when it came to building the UI, right? Once I was done with my research and referencing phase, everything, I used to either, pick up a design system or try to build a design system from scratch. But this time, because it was a self-initiated project, I wanted to use and complete AI tool to even do the designing bit for me. So I used Figma Make. The best part about the tool was it actually you can install your or you can add your design system that you want to use in the tool, and it will use those same components and colors. And just through uh like kind of a clever prompt engineering and what I wanted to design, I made the entire project completely through the AI tool. And it was like the turnaround time, it would have taken me around 2 weeks to make that entire platform. I was able to do that in 3 days. So I think that cutting down that time, right? While still obviously customizing things and changing things at how I wanted. So I had that flexibility option as well. Uh, it was one of the interesting projects. The best part was while I was designing the UI, simultaneously the prototype in real time was also getting built. So I did not have to spend another additional few hours on, prototyping it. So I could actually visualize the interactions as well as see how the UI is, right? So I think that project really helped me a lot of how I can even when I was thinking about the information architecture, so how I different kinds of agentic experiences I can basically involve in compared to what the existing product was. So I think yeah, that was one of the exciting projects that got me started about this entire using the tool thing. And the best part was I could deploy the product and I could see it on a live link and I could use it from a user POV, right? So I think that was a great experience with Figma Make as a tool, which actually I started first. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I feel like prototyping has definitely gone to the next level versus, and it's also become so much easier with agents. Previously we would sit on the screens and connect all of the screens together, and I know that process might still exist when you're actually working with the product, but with MVPs it's become so much easier. I actually don't even remember the last time I prototyped or I felt the need to prototype, because you're just working with agents and it's so much faster and easier and everything. One interesting thing that you said was around referencing, and I feel like it's a problem, or it's a question that I've also had with agents coming in. The need to actually go out there and reference has sort of reduced, right? Or is it just me who's like experiencing this? Because I feel like if I have to solve a problem and I need like multiple solutions to it, I can just explain really well to Figma Make what is it that I want. And that has also become so much easier because I just use voice to text. I type up, or like at least the voice to text types up a long paragraph explaining exactly what it is that I want. Put it in Figma Make, and you get like such nice options within 2-3 minutes, which otherwise you would have to like spend at least half a day referencing and this and that. And a lot of the times, especially with products that are not consumer facing products, you would have to just go through screenshots. You actually never got to use that feature, which with agentic experience has become, with like agents coming in and designing with agents, sorry, has become so much better. So this has the need for referencing reduced, or like how we reference now, has it changed like for you as well? And have you noticed this with like other designers, or like, yeah, like what are your thoughts there? What's the process like there?
Yeah, I feel definitely for me, and I feel like for a lot of designers who are now adapting and using these, tools, referencing has definitely become easier. And not just referencing, but, tedious or long straining tasks that initially used to take a lot of time have now drastically reduced, and it's very efficiently now you can work and focus more on product thinking, right? Rather than keep on iterating and trying to do uh, like tasks that used to take up a lot of time. But I think tracking back the conversation, I think you raised a very good point, which I would like to have, one uh, thought about is because a lot of designers are now using these AI tools and prototyping very fast, right? It's very important to differentiate yourself, right? Because 10 other designers are doing able to do the same thing, right? How do you differentiate yourself? And what I feel is the biggest differentiator now is your taste and aesthetics, right? No AI can teach you taste and aesthetics. AI will give you uh generic output of the UI, but what you want in the UI, right? That sense of aesthetics and that taste is completely up to you. uh, you can, I mean, this comes naturally as a designer, and even if not naturally, you can still learn, right? Taste and aesthetics through observing real world objects or seeking inspiration from digital plus real world designs, and then seeing, okay, or collecting references, right? You don't need to always collect references just because you're working on a project. If you see something good on Instagram, if you see something good design on a billboard, can just take a photo and just save it as a, how you make a Pinterest board or a gallery or a reference, and you can just uh, do this exercise for your own good. Now this exercise does two good things for you. One is whenever you are working on a project, you have a gallery of great references with you, so it saves a lot of time. Another thing is the more you observe, right, the more your mind remembers how things look or how you associate patterns, establish patterns. So when you are thinking or brainstorming as a designer, these observations actually help you a lot to visualize how your product should look, right? It's good that your product works well, but it's equally important that also it looks well, because I feel a lot of designers, especially those who are getting started, ignore visual design and think that, I have done my part of uh, thinking and cracking the UX. Now it's up to the UI team or graphic designers to fix the UI. But it's like it's all one thing. It's not separate like UI and UX. You don't need to separate that responsibility. You need to make sure that you are in the entire holistic experience of the product must feel good to the user. So I think taste and aesthetics is, as a designer, you should keep adapting yourself. Personally, I feel that uh, I am better at product thinking, and visual design is something still I'm learning even after, being in this field for three years, and I'm practicing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of references. And I think we as designers need to keep on in evolving this taste in order to always keep ourselves differentiated, no matter what technologies and tools come. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I agree with that as well when it comes to taste. But I also feel like it's not just taste and aesthetics. Now that anyone can prompt and create a product, product thinking is just as important, right? Because you also need to know, you obviously need to create something beautiful and good and like easy on the eyes, but it also has to have product thinking and like a good flow. So in that sense, I mean, that does relieve like a lot of pressure of the fact that anyone can design, because ultimately that's not true. Um, People who were designing well can now just design faster. And with like product managers also designing and engineers also designing, obviously a lot more people have better tools and they're better equipped to design. But at the same time, it's still important to have the knowledge, because you need to know. I mean, if you don't know what to do with the tool, you're just like, you're not going to be able to do anything. And as for taste and aesthetics, yeah, I feel like that also comes with time, and it also comes with more and more like the more you expose yourself to good design and the more you study it, the more your taste sort of gets better, and it builds better. So I agree there. And yeah, I think my next thing that I wanted to ask, which again came out of this conversation itself, is the fact that given that you're working with clients also, right, and you're shipping products that are completely agent based, one is, do clients realize they that these products are made by agents and not in the way we used to make products or like we used to design? And second, if they do realize it, are they able to trust it, or like, is it actually exciting for them to be able to see the prototype faster? Like, what is the client's reaction there? And like, have you, like, what has that experience been like, right? Because for personally, for me, that has not happened so far, wherein I'm actually working with a client on like a product that I built with like Figma Make or Claude or anything like that. So yeah, what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah, so like my experience has been one more level ahead than that. So I have worked with clients that already built this entire platform first before even approaching Tequity on tools like Replit and Claude. And now they wanted a designer to shape this prototype or this MVP that they have already made. And how can we, with our product thinking and our sense of visual knowledge, elevate that experience and keep building that base, that or that foundation that they have in their mind. That's what's been my experience, because this is really great for designers, because right now they don't have to do this guesswork with clients about what they want, because they have already built the north star of a starting point of your design process, and now they just have to build upon that. So that has been my experience with clients that have already built it, and it is really easy to work with these sets of clients because they are already adapting to the technology and they understand how their design works or how tech works. So they are very much on the same page as you. Second thing it does is it saves time massively, and it actually bridges the gap between front end engineering and designers, right? We used to design things, and then the engineers used to build like a prototype by actually hard coding things. But right now, because of easy prototyping, and clients who are very tech savvy get it, and it is very easy to present designs to them, explain them interactions. Now coming to the other set of clients uh, that are not tech savvy, but they are aware that technologies exist that helps designers, right? My personal experience has been they don't easily understand that how it was built, whether it agents were used to design that product, but they do see a very drastic difference in terms of the timeline, right? How quickly we are providing those deliverables to them. So they have raised questions like how were we able to do so fast ahead of our roadmap. So I think they are also slowly and steadily started realizing that, uh, even companies are, using this quick workflows, which are much more efficient. And it's a win-win for both, right? The clients as well as us as designers, PMs or engineers. So I think, yeah, that's been my experience working on agentic led projects. Yeah.
That's quite cool, actually. I did not think of that third scenario wherein client themselves are using these products, but it also makes sense. I have seen, like, even I worked with a client wherein they did try their hand at the dashboard, and exactly what you said, right? We had our North Star, so that was there. One thing that I feel has like one major change that's happened because of AI coming in is that we're able to test products really fast. Previously, that was not the case. You would go through like months of building. You used to come down to like a prototype or like a proper MVP that was shipped, and then designers were able to actually do the testing and actually figure out what's working and what's not working. And what that meant was a lot of cycles between like designers and engineers. And the engineer would have to like fix things. Again, the designers going out doing user testing, stuff like that. I think the trade off we have now is that we don't wait to perfect the product and we can test fast, right? So testing is fast, but there's a good chance that we're also testing products that are not perfect. So, what do you think? Like, what are your opinions there, or like, what are your thoughts on that? Wherein you test fast and iterate versus you used to perfect the MVP to a certain level. Iterations were still there, but it happened after like we had a solid MVP. Now you can just do it in a day. So, which do you think is better? Which process has worked better for you, for the users also, and for the businesses also, like all three aspects?
So I feel this purely depends upon the type of client that you're working with, the type of founder, the type of industry they are. If you're working with someone who is in, like, the 0 to 1 stage, or a very pre-seed or a pre-funding stage, and they want to quickly build an MVP, and this might sound very anti-pattern as a designer, but test fast, fail fast. That's the philosophy that they should operate with, because you need to be super fast to first even set your PMF, right? The room to experiment, the room to perfect your product and do months of testing comes at a very later stage, once you have actually set a PMF and you have built a base audience for your platform or your product, right? Uh, then you can afford to take the risk of delaying it and doing multiple testings until you feel that, now you have tested enough and it's the best time right now to ship it in the market. But if you are someone who uh, is at a, like, you don't even have a product, you just have an idea, you want to build it, I feel it's important that you quickly test it out and you focus more on how the users are experiencing, whether the need is also there or not, right? So it starts from need generation. Once you build the need, then the demand side of it happens, and the demand generation comes in, and then the optimization comes. So, like, need, demand and optimization, that's how the cycle flows. And another thing, or another side of it, is that companies that have a lot of money and lot of resources, like big companies, right? They can afford to do research and user testing. Uh, but companies that do not have so many resources or money, they should ideally not uh, spend so much time in research, but rather spend a lot of time in first building a traction for your product. So yeah, I feel this is what I feel about this whole like how much time should they invest, and like it completely depends on the product life cycle at which they are there.
Yeah, I completely honestly agree with the test fast, fail fast theory uh, because ultimately you're designing for the users, and the sooner we get their opinions, the better. So yeah, I do agree with that. And I feel like ultimately there is no guarantee that you spend 3 months on an MVP and then you take it to the users and it will, it will succeed. Like, sure, it will succeed. A lot of times those products fail as much too, and you have to go back to the drawing board and you have to start from scratch. So test fast, fail fast. And you said something about like need demand optimization. I'm just going to put it up there as an edit because that's quite helpful as well. Okay, so like we are almost at the end. What are some of the tips you would, or like, what advice or tips would you give people or designers or engineers who are just starting out, or maybe they have been in the industry for a while and they want to transition to either designing or using AI tools as a part of their processes, and they haven't started yet and they're looking for like advice from people who also transitioned in that sense?
Sure. So I feel for designers who already have a few years of experience and for freshers, right, who are starting, the biggest advantage as freshers you have is even those designers who have a few years of experience, you can actually catch up to them in a very quick time now. I feel this is the best time to be a designer because you have all the resources in the world to be much more efficient and spend a lot of time in evolving as a product thinker, right? So, uh, the biggest learning I feel, so for someone who wants to pick up with the entire AI race and agentic experiences, is learning how to collaborate with AI instead of seeing it as a shortcut, right? We quickly think about AI tools and think about, okay, this is going to be a shortcut for me, but think about more of a collaborative experience, right? It's you who is should be equally involved in the entire process and not solely depend on AI. I feel uh, that's a rabbit hole that a lot of people can fall into about, just purely and solely depending upon AI. So use AI to explore when you're just beginning, right? Ideas faster, analyze flows, and simulate how your product would look, how your interaction behavior would be, how your system behavior would be. But the core thinking and about the product as well as about how your UI will look, the taste and aesthetics should still come from you as a designer. So I would not, uh, I would still recommend like people who are just starting to first have like first principles thinking and fundamental thinking as a designer. That is always going to be important because the interface will always keep on changing. We used to have uh, calculators. We went from calculators to graphic user interfaces. We went from those to smartphones. In few years we might be designing for VR, AR. It's always going to change, right? But your thinking about the product is going to remain the same. So the designers, I feel, who will benefit a lot from AI are the ones who understand systems, workflows, and user intent, right? It all begins with user intent. AI can help you move faster, but it still needs like that strong product thinking behind it. So, yeah, I think that's where the biggest takeaway, even for me right now, is. And for those who are getting started with it, it should be. And again, you know, be like experiment a lot, fail a lot. Okay, failing is important. It's a part of process. Don't stress too much about, okay, I need to catch up fast. Take your time, but keep on experimenting. 5 to 10% effort daily. Um is better. I think the compounding effect is real. So the more you compound, the more you're going to stay ahead of other designers, right? You don't need to have it is natural to have imposter syndrome, but it is also important to keep moving ahead, because these small steps behind the scenes work so much, and it builds your muscle memory, your how you think, how you approach a problem. So I think, yeah, I feel these are the advices that I would give to new designers.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, like systems thinking, workflows, and user intent. Um, the three things that someone needs to look at. I feel like these three terms are gems again. So thank you so much for that. I think that's really smart and it really sums up and narrows it down for like people who are just starting out. And the compounding effect truly, like I do get where you're coming from, spending just half an hour extra daily on like learning something new or reading something new does help. Do you have channels or like people you look up to or like follow on social media, designers from the industry or people from the industry that you listen to or follow, or channels that you follow to like sort of stay up to date or learn about like what new technologies have come up, stuff like that?
Yeah, so two designers that I follow a lot. I feel for me, number one is this designer called Ansh Mehra. I feel he talks a lot about tech and especially around AI, right? So I think, and the best part is, most of his content is like freely available on YouTube and his own website. He has exhaustively covered right from when AI came into the picture, right, from the designing till how it's getting evolved today. So I think watching those videos, reading articles around it, he has also written a lot of articles, will help a lot. Second thing is Medium article, like Medium as a platform is another very great and underrated source of getting information. A lot of talented designers from fan companies and famous companies keep posting and keep talking about AI, right? Their tools and technologies. I feel reading is as important as consuming content via videos. So I think that's important. Another great designer is like Saptarshi, I feel, which a lot of people from the design community already know, but he always gives a very basic perspective, a very beginner friendly explanation of any technology or how to get started as a designer, right? So I think, yeah, these two, and uh, as it all depends on how you consume content and what type of content you consume, right? So the more you consume design related content and you follow these designers, automatically the algorithm will reward you with similar kind of videos, and you're going to consume the similar content. So yeah, just get started. It does not matter whether you consume it from YouTube, Instagram, algorithm. I feel at this day and age, any platform can be a learning platform. You just need to spend some time, like as you mentioned, maybe 20-30 minutes a day to just read about it. And one good thing you can do is maybe journal few learnings that you have, right? Maybe out of a 10-page article, few 5-6 lines really resonated with you, or you remembered about it. Just write it down, expand your thought more on it, do some own self research as well about what these new things about AI or these tools mean. And as much as theory is important, it's also important to practice these theories. So whatever you're learning, also put it into practice. So yeah, I think these things will really help you to build your foundations and get adapted to the whole AI experience.
Yeah, I think that's quite cool. I think journaling is really um a new take on things, which reminds me of something I listened to very recently. Jenny, when she's a designer at Anthropic, and she was talking about how she would journal or like just take notes um of things that she like small learnings that she has had throughout her career, and they were like notes in notebooks, on the phone app notes, just like it was just they were just a bunch of scattered notes. And with Claude Cowork, I think I don't remember the product she used, but basically what she did was she collected all of her notes and she put them, I think she used Claude Cowork for it, but she basically gave it to an agent, and the agent organized the notes and was able to tell her journey throughout the years, and was able to tell her learnings. So it's almost like watching your journey and being able to understand how far you've come, and also having like a nice organized collection of whatever you've learned over like 10 years, because she's a senior designer. She must have she's been in the industry for quite some time. So just being able to see that, I think that's quite cool, and it always helps. I started doing that, wherein I just have started like noting things down in my notes app, and I'm hoping at some point I have a collection which I can use. So yeah, journaling can be like a really good idea, I feel. Um, where are you headed now? Like what are your plans for the future? And also tell me a little bit about like, one, what is it that you really enjoy about being a designer apart from the whole impact thing? Something that's not very formal, like you just enjoy being a designer because of like XYZ reason. And second, what is it that you enjoy doing apart from like design, and how do you spend your time? What does your day look like? And any like future plans that you have mapped out, any goals you want to achieve with respect to like design or otherwise, anything that you would like to share with the people watching this right now. But yeah.
Sure. So, right now, I feel, I'm taking it one step and one day at a time. Um, I, I am, as I've started, exploring AI and tools, so I'm trying my best to upskill myself daily and see how my workflow adapts and how efficient as a designer I can become. So that's my goal, to keep upskilling myself and become much more efficient in my process. Uh, and I feel like that will take some time, and as the technologies will change, my workflows also change. And one other thing that I really enjoy about being a designer is always working with a different kind of a problem. Like, it is always a unique experience, be it any project. And one thing I really like is that, whenever I begin with a project, I am intimidated by PRDs, briefs, and just getting accustomed to, how the project is going to shape. But as, we reach towards the finish line, the project is in its completing stages. As a designer, I feel like after the end of every project, there is so much learning that happens. There's so much um, mistakes that are made or good things that are learned. So every time it's a unique experience and it does not feel repetitive. So I think that I enjoy a lot. I also enjoy that, uh, you know like a different as a designer, I get to experiment with different tools, different platforms, always design for different types of users, right? And how their behavior is getting impacted. So I think the flexibility and fluidity of different projects across, I think that's really fun, I feel. And you always stay updated by default about the tech world as a designer. So that's like a another good bonus that you have. Um, and you do judge a book by its cover, when you're a designer. So I think that has been a habit since I've started designing. And yeah, I mean, my future plan is, to kind of now shift from just being into design to actually thinking also like a PM. I know that the line is kind of getting blurred, but now I also want to completely own the entire product experience, and also see how I can move up in man towards management as well. Like I want to now establish in future a balance of hands-off work versus also trying to manage and take complete ownership of a project, and working like as a owner of a project with all engineers and designers. So I think, yeah, I do want to see myself move up the ladder and see how that experience is.
You're absolutely right on the fact that we do judge a book by its cover. And I mean, I feel like it's also by trade, right? Like we work on UI and we work on aesthetics. The entire job is that. A huge part of the job is that. So we do end up judging a book by its cover. I feel like that's also a good thing because, and like, it has its pros and cons. It also helps you in other aspects of life. Since I've become a designer, my aesthetics have really improved, not just in like product design but also like interior design, the clothes I wear, in general, like how I design my life also. So like every small thing is aesthetically designed or like aesthetically in place and has to be like pleasing to the eye. So which I feel like is a good thing only. So no complaints there. And it's good that you're like, you're looking at product management as well, or just like learning how that works. I feel like that's also a very, it used to be a very natural transition for people. For they used to go from being designers to being product managers. I feel like with how roles are changing now, um a designer might have to be a PM and a front end engineer. Like the ownership will really expand. And I think that's quite exciting, to be honest. When you actually own a product, you are really responsible for it. There's accountability. And then when you have more skin in the game, you're just like working better. It's high pressure, but also high reward. So that's really cool. And I wish you all the best for that. If you ever need any help, and if I can ever help you in any way, you can always reach out. But that also brings me to the end of my questions that I had. Thank you so much for joining in and for doing this and for like saying yes. It really means a lot that you came on and you were able to share your journey. And I hope that through this platform I'm able to, just like your journey reaches out to people and it actually adds value for them. So thank you so much for doing this and giving me the time to just sit down and have this incredible conversation. I feel like I've learned quite a few things here which will help me as a designer as well.
Yeah, no, actually, thank you a lot for also giving me opportunity to have, a discussion about, AI and a lot of things. It was really fun interacting with you. And one question that I wanted to answer, I think that I forgot. So apart from, designing, I have recently started running, so I enjoy running a lot. Like, and that has actually helped me in my work as well, because like sports like running makes you mentally very strong. So I think that uh, mental strength as well as a productive mindset after a workout, I think that has actually helped me to even become much more efficient. And to any designer out there, right, please also take care of your health. While it is good to be invested and be ambitious about your career, but I feel even if you do just basic 20 minutes walk a day, right, it really keeps your mind fresh and flowing of creative and new ideas, right? If you just have this long hour screen time and screen fatigue, I think it can have a blockage of ideas and thoughts in your mind, and a brain fog gets created. So it's also equally important that you take care of your body and keep some form of physical activity throughout the day. Another thing I really enjoy is, like watching a lot of movies. So I think I'm a movie enthusiast. And yeah, I mean, I also enjoy playing pickleball and trying different kind of sports. So this year I actually want to learn how to play tennis. Uh, so yeah, I think, yeah, that's about me. But yeah, it was, I feel again, amazing to have a conversation with you and share my perspective with you. And also, I learned a lot of new perspectives and new things today through this exchange. So, yeah, I think it was great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's quite cool. Pickle in tennis and running. So I feel like you're picking up a lot of new things, which is quite nice. And I definitely like thank you for sharing the fact that we also need to be healthy. I feel like brain fog is real. And if you're a creative person and you're like, your brain is all foggy, no ideas are coming out. And like I face that problem as well, wherein if like you're dealing with a brain fog, you just cannot work. So eating healthy, working out just a little bit, taking some time out from your busy schedule and being able to do that and just keeping your mind clear is so important for like a productive day and like just being able to solve problems, being creative, things like that. So thank you for sharing that and thank you so much for coming on and yeah, any last words that you have for anyone who's watching this or anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I would just like to say that just get started. Okay. Starting is the hardest and scariest part, but once you start, it's like you're on cruise control and it's all a free flow. So just get started, and don't think that you are limited by constraints or resources. You don't have this subscription, you don't have these, you don't know which classes to take to learn things. Everything is available for free on the internet. It's all up to you on how you take things, and you or me or anyone like us can get adapted to things very quickly with the resources that we have right now. So yeah, it will feel intimidating, but just get started and trust the process. It is a game of patience, but it is surely rewarding, like the more you venture into it.
Thank you so much for sharing that and thank you so much for coming on.